I would say that it's pretty straightforward. It's about integrity and it's about working hard. And I don't mean average hard. And I know it's smart working. You know, it's about being organised, but it's still really hard work. It's being unbelievably committed, and that, you know, people use the word passion, and it doesn't matter what word you use, but the commitment is vast and you will make sacrifices. And if you're not prepared to make those kind of sacrifices, you know, I think that you need to think very carefully about what you're intending to do. And then I think it's about ultimately delivering on a promise, which sadly is rarer than you think, particularly in service. And you know, I think there's a weakness in sales that I've come across, that I naturally clearly have the ability to sell. I don't know where that came from. I mean, you know, perhaps humiliation and I are very close friends. I don't mind being embarrassed, and if at first I don't succeed, I try again. And I think those things are entrepreneurial characteristics. In a business, there's lots of things to measure, but ultimately they say that 80% of your profit comes from 20% of your customers. And that also, that 80-20, which is called the Pareto rule, is the thing that drives many of the metrics. And in fact, if you have 80% of the information you need, i.e. 80% of the ammunition to make a decision, the extra 20% that you're waiting for is time for the others to catch up. And I think that's where an entrepreneur will calculate the step they take, and they won't refer to it as risk because they think they've done enough homework to make a decision on their, and then they will use their guts. And I think that if you can learn to read your guts, and don't get me wrong, I still make mistakes and I kick myself every time I do it, but I think that spirit is the thing you start to, I don't know, is it an energy that you have? Is it just experience that you gain? So I'd say, no, I'm not a risk taker, but I calculate my steps. I think there's huge advantages, being frank, because you're minority and you can be more outstanding, and actually if you're more memorable in business, that's a huge thing, and I think people should work on trying to be memorable, because actually those things sell. If you're going to set up a business, frankly any business, I think the most important thing you need to be thinking about is that you're thinking about a product and a customer and a service level that is going to be outstanding. I don't think you set up a business to make money. In my experience, you don't meet other proven entrepreneurs who've managed to have a spectacular journey who did it for the money. They will have done it for security and for lots of other reasons. I think the other thing is that, and it has to be said, however you know, repetitive it is, if you do not keep an eye on your cash and you're setting up a business and you don't understand the numbers, the financial impact of the decisions you make, then don't begin until you have an idea. Because actually I had to teach myself my own bookkeeping. I literally had those big red ledgers, you know, bought ledger and sales ledger, and I used to balance my accounts and I used to write in the ledger in pencil, and I am talking 20 years ago, but it is the most powerful foundation of knowing where my margin was, how I made my money, and did I have enough cash to make the next decision. That is absolutely critical. I started my business in 1991. That was the last recession. And I would suggest to you that there is no better time, because at that time, big companies are weighed down with structure and conformity to regulation, where actually, you know, beginnings of the business can break all the rules. There are less, although there's more regulation today than there was then. And I would say that, you know, you have the opportunity to stay fleet of foot and to be flexible and agile and to offer faster return service. And actually the bigger companies are looking to cut costs, and if you go to them with a good idea, or hopefully a great idea, actually it's probably easier to sell now, but the hardest thing is finding the person that's the decision maker, because there's less of them. But I would say, you know, how do I look upon it? I never really thought about it then when I set up, but when I reflect, what a great time to be an entrepreneur.